Hey everyone, RogueGold here, welcome back to the Division 2. And today, we're going to be fully diving into the new Retaliations open world mode. It is available right now on the public test server. Anyone who owns the Division 2 on PC can jump in and try it. As for when it will hit the live game, that will be when the next season begins, which right now is looking to be in early September. So this video is going to be split into two parts. Firstly, I just want to plainly present what Retaliations are, how they work, what rewards you're chasing and why you might want to play them, and then afterwards I want to give you some of my first impressions and feedback after playing through several rounds of it. Hopefully that all sounds good. If you end up enjoying the video and you want to catch all of my coverage on the Division 2, including other stuff from this PTS leading up to the next season, all of it, then be sure to subscribe. Additionally, as always, wanted to take a moment to thank our channel members. Your support helps me keep the channel up and running. Appreciate it so much. But without further ado, let's get to this. Alright, so the first thing that I want to clarify is that Retaliations are not a season-specific activity. Now, Year 7 Season 2 will revolve a lot around them, but they are here to stay. This is not a limited time thing. They are pretty akin to bounties and how they will be an always present, feature and mode of the open world. And this feature is going to be available in DC, New York, and Brooklyn. So, Retaliations focus entirely around the concepts of territory control and faction invasions. Before you are actually able to start one up, you must first fill up what is known as an agitation meter. Basically, any open world content related to a specific enemy faction will fill up that faction's agitation meter. So think main missions, control points, open world activities, bounties, whatever. So for instance, I completed DCD headquarters here, and then I went to the retaliation screen after, and you can see that the bar for the outcasts had filled up. Now, once you play through enough content to entirely fill that agitation meter, you can go to the retaliation screen on your map and decide whether or not you want to take one on. Once you fill that meter, you have a 6-hour window to decide whether or not you want to play it. If you do choose to, it then loads you into a separate instance of the open world. In this separate instance, you will not run into any other players. In the safe houses, you won't find any friendly NPCs roaming around. It is just you and your team, if you have one with you. And so whichever zone the retaliation is taking place in, you spawn in that zone's safe house. And from that point, you're given an 8-minute timer, which is visible just below your radar. Now, the goal and win condition of Retaliations is to retake each control point within whatever zone you're in. Kills that you get while you're running around, as well as completing different activities like the control points, will extend that timer, whereas deaths or other obstructions you run into hinder your chances for success. So, a couple of things to note. Fast traveling is entirely disabled within Retaliations. You spawn at that safe house, and then you have to go out and run from there. Also, you cannot leave the named zone that you spawn in. If you try to, it will give you the leaving playable area warning. However, you're not stuck within this mode. If you do choose to back out, you can open up your map and you'll see there's a retreat option. So, as I mentioned, your goal is to retake each of the now hostile control points. Is that it? Not quite. For one, there will be random waves of NPCs that will spawn and attack you as you move throughout the zone. These are very akin to the Division 1 Westside Piers, if you played those. Just kind of constant forces and threats moving your way. The control points themselves behave slightly differently than normal. Again, there are no friendly NPCs within this mode. Instead, you play through kind of multiple waves of attack and defense. These can feature multiple bosses, at least on Heroic, which is what I played on. And at times, you'll run into special enemy compositions. I played one where there was a wave of like all suicide bombers that ran my way. Another time there was just a whole squad of tanks running around. But the real icing on the cake here is what are known as kill squads. Now, these are deadly teams of NPCs that will randomly spawn and attack you during a retaliation. This can happen either during a control point that you're attacking or while you're just out there traversing the zone. Now, these kill squads consist entirely of bosses, and they can contain unique enemy types. For instance, I had one time where 2 of those underground faction chainsaw heavies were in there. So for the most part, that is what you need to know in terms of gameplay and objectives. Whether or not you win or lose the overall retaliation, you will end with a screen like this showing how many points you retook and what your rewards are. That brings up the question, why should I play Retaliations, right? What is the incentive? Well, Retaliations, for the first time in the Division 2, offer exotic blueprints. Not the reconfiguration configuration ones that we have now, but the ability to make an exotic from scratch. Now, this includes every exotic weapon and gear item that is in the general loot pool, so it does not include the project-based ones, items like the Ridgeway's Pride, the Capacitor. It also does not include raid or otherwise exclusive exotics, things like the Eagle Bearer, the Ouroboros, all of those. As far as how to get these blueprints, you have a chance to get one from slain kill squad members. I got the collector blueprint from one that I faced. Any of these that you get, you can visit the crafting bench to view. They do require materials found exclusively from Retaliations to craft. These are awarded from facing the various different factions. However, there are also conversion blueprints here available if you need to kind of switch around what type of resource you have. But I think that is most of the info that you need to know about Retaliations. So let's switch on over to some of my thoughts. Alright, so what do I think? Let's start with some of the positives. I have been crying from the rooftops for years that Division needs to take advantage of its open worlds more, right? They are so detailed, tons of time goes into making them, and then when we get to the end game, it shoots us off to 10 different modes and maps that aren't a part of the main world. So the fact that Retaliations gives us a reason to spend time in the main world, and it remixes the gameplay into a race against the clock plus like a hunt sort of thing from the enemies, awesome premise. I also really like the fact that we can't fast travel in this, right? It actually helps to know shortcuts in the open world and have a general sense of direction and where you're going. And just this overall idea of these pressurized onslaught type of control point fights is awesome. It's exactly the kind of replayable and push your build to the limit experience that I really crave in these games. That's also reinforced by the idea, at least, maybe not the execution, but the idea of the kill squads. Love it. Unpredictable, powerful, chef's kiss. So all of that sounds great on paper, but does it come together, again, in execution? There's a couple of things to keep in mind here. As far as the rewards of this mode, I'm not the target audience. I have every single exotic in the game, right? I don't need blueprints to craft anymore. So that's kind of out of the conversation for me because I'm here for the gameplay. That's what I'm giving feedback on. Something else to note, from a difficulty perspective, which we're going to get more into, my PTS character is very unideal to test the limits of this mode. Reason being, on my PC character, I have no shade levels, no expertise levels, I don't have my preferred specializations unlocked, so the character that you are seeing play through Retaliations in this gameplay is the freshest of fresh endgame character and template you can imagine. Also, the presentation of Retaliations here on the PTS is not the full scope of the feature. The patch notes detail a mechanic called maneuvers, which seem to be these optional objectives that exist in between control points to offer more ways to extend the clock. So I can only give feedback on what is on offer right now. We will have to wait and see what else is planned for this mode. But to really get down to it, my main point of critique is I'm worried that this mode doesn't currently do enough to challenge players who are seeking that higher end difficulty scale. Now I know, elitist rogue strikes again. I think as I mentioned before, so far I have only played Retaliations on the PTS on heroic, so I'm not trying to speak for or change any of the lower difficulties. Now don't get me wrong, on my PTS character with no endgame progression, as I said, it did feel like a pretty adequate challenge. There were times where I just got swarmed by too many reinforcements and I died. There was a point in time where the kill squad teamed up with those reinforcements and I died. However, even on my character, depending on the build and under the right conditions, things became much easier. For instance, I used a sniper build with Headhunter on one of the kill squads, and I wiped every one of them out without really breaking a sweat. And so to take that foundation and experience and extrapolate that to what it might feel like on my actual main character, who's got 40% more damage minimum from shade levels and expertise, all the other bells and whistles and stats of several years worth of progression, I just worry that something that has the amazing bones and framework to be a high intensity, unpredictable control point rush kind of mode may turn into another piece of pushover content. And to be fair, this may just be a symptom of the insane power creep that we have in the Division 2. It's likely not actually Retaliation's fault. That said, I do wonder if there could be some tweaks made to give it even more of an edge on the higher difficulties, in this case heroic. Do we need some kind of legendary difficulty on this? It would certainly be nice. But in terms of specifics, as far as the timer of the mode goes, it's kind of hard for me to say if it's in a good spot or not, because in my experience so far, if you mess up once, like on your first control point, it can be pretty hard to recover. But as soon as you clear one of the control points or the kill squads, you kind of just forget that the timer's even there, right? You get enough to just be able to go and do the rest of your stuff. So maybe there could be some further fine tuning done there, as well as it might be nice to see the timer cater to what map you're playing on. For example, as far as I've seen, you get the same 8-minute timer if you're in DC with 4 control points in your zone versus if you're in Brooklyn with only 2 points in your zone. Enemy density is another topic. I really appreciate the randomly spawning waves of enemies that you get as you traverse through the map, but for those just to be one cluster of red and purple ads, that's nothing, right, to an endgame build. So it would be amazing to see an increased amount of enemy count in those waves, maybe a different variety of squad types, maybe some more varied or unique spawn locations to keep them a bit less predictable. I am very curious to see how those aforementioned maneuvers play into the between control point flow, because that did definitely feel a little bit empty in this presentation. The last main point that I then wanted to hit on was the kill squads. Now, don't get me wrong, I love these in theory, right? And sometimes the combination of the time they spawn and the specific composition of their unit did prove to be a real challenge. However, in general, named enemies with no specialty to them will die very quickly for a lot of the higher end endgame geared players. And so, instead of these just being bosses with nothing to them, what if you were to give them shade skills, right? The defender drone or bombardier drone or sniper turret or oxidizer, those skills that like the Nemesis in Descent has, for example, those are a real threat. I want to feel fearful when I see that notification that a kill squad is spawned in, instead of like it is now, where I'm just like, great, I've got 5 health bars running my way to mow them all down. Other than all of those points, as I stated, I do really love the framework here. The redesigned control point flow feels fun. Please crank the enemy density and those wacky squad combinations that I mentioned to the max. Just keep things unpredictable, keep it fast paced, because so far, from what I've seen, Retaliations have the promise to be really, really fun. So that is an overview of the Division 2's new Retaliations mode, as well as some of my first impressions and thoughts on it. It's pretty wild that we're getting something like this in year 7 of the game, and although we're only a few weeks to go until this releases in the live game, I do hope that we see some good refinements and improvements, even if it's later on down the road. Regardless, I am still excited to play this on the live server, try it out with my own account and character. At this point though, I turn it over to you guys. What are your thoughts on this new Retaliations mode for the game? Whether you've played it, whether you've just been watching my footage of it here, what's your take? Does it look to be satisfactory enough for you for how you play the game? Do you agree with some of my proposed feedback? Do you maybe have other ideas? Whatever you've got, I look forward to reading through it. That's going to do it for me on this one though. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you back soon. RogueGold out.